Easter. We all know what it is. To the Christian church, it's the celebration of the resurrection of Jesus Christ, and to everyone else, it's pastel eggs and white rabbits. If you know me, I like to turn every occasion into an opportunity to make something, and what else is there to do here but paint eggs? But today, I'm not just dipping white eggs in food colouring or straight up blobbing on acrylic paint. No, I had to make it harder for myself. I'm painting on chocolate. Okay, I have this food colouring. It was supposed to be food powder, but I've bought concentrated food colour, so I got kind of instead of powder. But that's on me because I think I just bought the thing from the wrong tab when I was researching. And I've got this cacao butter thing, which I kind of thought would just be like a plain chocolate butter, I guess, but actually it's gross. This is what these look like. Don't worry, I've washed my hands, and anyway, that's my egg I'm gonna eat. Here I've got a cup of hot water from the kettle, and I just have a glass thing, and I'm just gonna put them in and hope they melt, which they may or may not. I might have to microwave them, but I'm not sure. But while we leave them to hopefully get all hot, and we leave that to the side, I'm going to get the paintbrushes. And I have got some white chocolate button things, in case these are well gross. Because I bit one and it was horrible, but... Ooh, look, it's melting. Can you see that? Look, it's melting. Crazy, it's turning into butter, which is the whole point. Anyway, I'm hoping once this is just thin paint and I've put it on the egg, you won't be able to taste it. But if you do, I have got white chocolate as a backup. So while we leave that to melt, these are the brushes I bought for this. I needed new brushes anyway, and just thought I might as well use them for this before I use them for painting. Because I was like, oh, I'll just use them ones, but they're covered in paint and ink and stuff, so obviously you don't want to eat that. But here are my new brushes. They're just off Amazon. I think they're good. I haven't used them yet, obviously. They're still whatever, but that's what we have. And yeah, this is just melting. Look at this. Ew. I don't have a palette because I thought I did, but I must have got rid of it years ago. But anyway, here's our food colour. Like I said, I was trying to buy the powder, and I didn't realize I was buying concentrated food colour. But it's too late now to worry about it, because I already got it, and I need to start painting today because I'm working tonight and tomorrow. Anyway, oops. Anyway, I think I should probably put a cover over my table so I don't dye it forever. And I need a drink. I'll be back. Okay, so this is melted, and I think we're going to do this side first, and then I'll try with white chocolate in a bit. I think I'll use just a little brush for now. I don't remember there being so many marks on these eggs. I thought they were plain, but I've already bought them. So anyway, just gonna put a little on the brush, and it's basically clear. Then I'm guessing it will dry white. Anyway, let me put that brush down. I have another pot, and green maybe. Actually, let's paint the flower first so we have an actual base. So say we wanted to do like rose, and then we can have like a daffodil. I can't remember what a daffodil looks like. We can have a daffodil, and I don't know how quick these things take to dry. So at the minute you can't see a thing. I'm going to add a little bit of colour. Add some... Where is this? Yellow. Like I said, I was supposed to get food powder, so I don't really know what I've got here. But I bought it, so it's my fault. Ow. Review time. Oh, it's like a gel. Isn't it? How bizarre. Okay, I'm just going to pour a little bit in. And I'll leave that there. Stay. I'm going to get a tiny piece of this yellow gel thing. I'm just going to mix it in. And because the mixture's already yellow, I don't know how you can see it, but it's already yellow. I can't really see if it's worked, but I'm going to assume it has. I think white chocolate might be better. This isn't showing up at all. The cacao butter was no way near opaque enough, tasted gross, and turned into a weird gel that I had to wash my hands 4 times to remove. And so I decided to substitute it with white chocolate. Not a big deal, but I wish I thought to try white chocolate first, to have saved myself the money. The white chocolate worked better instantly. At first I treated it just like paint, as that was the only way I could think to do it. The streaks from the brush reminded me of petals, and so I practiced drawing a few flowers. I then turned it around and attempted to paint a rabbit. This egg is far from pretty, but at least I know I have a general idea of how chocolate sits on the brush. I discovered that by using a palette knife I could slice lines into the chocolate or refine edges by shaving them. The next thing to do is mix a little food colouring and see how drastically it changes the consistency of the chocolate. I first tried glazing diluted food colour over the top of the white, which kind of worked, but I didn't like how the pigment pulled. I then mixed the colour straight into the melted chocolate and found that it was opaque enough without needing a white chocolate base. I became very confused when adding a big dollop of colour to the chocolate, as it seemed to react and the mixture became thick and dry like burnt chocolate, for lack of a better explanation. Looking back on it now, I hypothesized that by adding such an amount of gel I was bringing the temperature down on already cooling chocolate. Anyway, with the experiment egg covered in thick blotches of multi-coloured chocolate, it is now time to paint my first proper egg. Because I actually wanted this one to look nice, I photographed the egg and scribbled a drawing. I then used the edge of a palette knife to carve a shallow drawing onto the chocolate while the other chocolate was melting. From now on in the video, if you ever start to question what I'm trying to achieve, just look at the egg that my mini-me is painting. I have put the references there. I started with the rabbit's head, keeping in mind the direction of each brushstroke. I then filled in the body from bottom up as to more accurately represent the fur. I wiped off most of the chocolate from my brush and added streaks into the ears. Picking up a clean craft knife, I carved 3 small lines for the nose. Finally, I added some more white chocolate to the forehead and body to correct the shape and to add subtle lighting. In a new ramekin, I mixed green food colouring and added a little yellow to warm it. When painting the stalks, I found that I didn't like the streaky look on them, and so very carefully used the brush to apply and move the chocolate along. While I think that this painting could be better, I feel like that I learned the most here. Since this egg will be a gift to my nan, I felt like it was a little bare and so thought to paint a mini landscape. To maintain the Easter theme, I added a lamb laying in a field. The border was really hard to make and ended up a little wonky. The background, consisting of mainly blue, was tricky, as surprisingly it's hard to paint tiny mountains and clouds in melted chocolate. Who could have guessed? At this stage, it was hard to make out what anything was, and I could only hope that it would all come together at the end. I mixed a bright green for the grass, following the curve of the hills before going over the grass in the foreground and brushing upwards. Though subtle, I did add more yellow to the middle right of the grass to resemble sunlight. After adding foliage and refining everything, I painted flowery patterns around the border and daffodils on the side as a transition between the 2 paintings. I left the other side blank so the egg could be laid down in the box without ruining the paintings. Finally, I coloured in the bee at the top of the border, as it just looked like a strange blob in white. And here it is! It looks better in person because the 3D-ness of it really stands out, but it's really flat looking on screen. I'm happy with how vibrant I managed to get the colours, as I don't think it would have looked half as good without them. Moving on, it's time for me to make my Easter egg. I spent the previous day pondering what kind of design I wanted and was having a really hard time while sketching ideas. That was until I looked up and saw him. Same thing as the rabbit, I just drew over a photo of the egg. I liked the border for the last painting and wanted to do something similar again. I made a little arrangement of flowers. I started with lavender and added flowers that I thought looked nice with it. And of course, to keep with the Easter theming, I had to put bunny ears on him. I first used a palette knife to draw onto the egg, which was tricky as this one was already covered in lines and ridges. I then brushed off the chocolate shavings before melting white chocolate for the eyes and headband. I spent a little time working out how to mix the right colour for his muzzle, but managed to work it out in the end. Because I was drawing a cartoonish character, I could just fill in the shapes of colour. I really had to focus and take it slow for little details though, such as his nose and markings. I managed to mix a nice black, and since I'm applying chocolate over a large area, the brush strokes were more visible, so I had to make sure I did them in the right direction. After filling in the face, I worked backwards from the tip of the quills to the head, adding streaks into the cooling chocolate to resemble quills. Do you see the resemblance? Whoa. Shadow the Hedgehog. Maria! When I got up the next morning, I went straight to my table and resumed painting. I decided that it would be best to paint the flowers first and fill in the gaps with black later, and so mixed a vibrant yellow for the sunflowers. I wanted the stems to be all bendy and intertwined with each other, and unbeknownst to me, my phone storage was full and stopped recording the rest of this. You didn't miss much though, just me painting the lavender and the frame around it all. This last egg was also a gift, and so I thought to paint another landscape with a pretty border. Unlike the other one, however, this was a smaller egg, so I probably should have painted bigger, so I could have added more detail. I started adding green before realizing that I needed to add a border if I wanted to make sure that I kept to the circle. I then painted the grass, going from a yellow-green to a bluer one. I then struggled to melt chocolate for a while before smearing blue chocolate with a palette knife for the mountain. I did the same with the other ones, adding a brighter, lighter blue to differentiate them. I used the end of the palette knife to chisel the shape of the mountain and shave a slope where they overlap to make it more 3D. I thought the blue one at the front was too washed out and so went over it with freshly mixed, more vibrant layer of chocolate. The sky went through stages of looking acceptable to really bad. Once the chocolate had hardened, I went in again and carved into it to define the clouds a little. By setting my palette knife in hot water for a few seconds, I could use it to smooth the chocolate. Using the palette knife again, I added trees and used my brush to add marks to hint at branches. Finally, I went over the grass in a more vibrant green and dotted flowers all over before redoing the white border and adding swirls. This was fun. Maybe you should try it. For the past week, my bedroom has smelt of chocolate and it's been so hard not to open any of my Easter eggs. Happy Easter, everybody! Thanks for watching.